everybody wants their name,
Immortalized, yeah.
right? Everybody wants a skill in the
Yeah.
code of points, and so did I. And I knew, I wasn't going to make it into a final. I had tried to make it into the vault finals by maybe upgrading to a Yurchenko double full, and I taught myself a cause. And then I couldn't teach myself a double full, so I was like, oh, that's out of the books. What else can I do? And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to invent a skill, which easier said than done, right? There's all the skills are already done. And so I opened up the code of points and I said, okay, what hasn't been done yet?
Welcome to the Stick the Landing podcast, brought to you by Iron Business Solutions. We've got stories to tell and solutions to deliver for your gymnastics business. Today, my guest is the founder of Full Out Collegiate Recruiting, a surgical physician assistant in the OR working in robotic surgery, and Olympic gymnast Houry Gebeshian. I've always thought, Houry, that you were a bit of an underachiever. I think maybe you need to accomplish a little bit more in your life. But aside from your extreme laziness, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Happy to be here.
I mean, it wasn't real. All it was stating the facts, except for the part about you being lazy. All right, I'm going to do something a little bit unusual. I usually like to start off the show by going into a deep biographical dive. But I want to start here instead, near the end, and then we'll circle all the way back around. Producer Tom, can you play video clip 1 for us? This is you competing your first event at the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio. Specifically, this is you dismounting bars. Awesome. Nailed that landing. Look at that smile. And you kissed the uneven bars. So can you tell us, after you nailed that routine, you gave it a big smooch, how long have you and the bars been dating? Were you dating? How serious was it?
Yeah, we have a long-standing relationship. I'd say about 20 years of love for that event.
Yeah, real love, because later on we're going to talk about how you should love that event so much more than balance beam. But
we'll argue about that for sure.
We will, and I'll win. All right, all kidding aside, that was an awesome moment. And we're going to go now, and we're going to back all the way up to you competing for Armenia. And I want to talk the audience or kind of walk them through how you ended up competing at the Olympic Games for Armenia, because you're an American citizen. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about my new word, the diaspora. Tom, can we put diaspora up on the screen for my viewers? This is my new vocabulary word. Thank you for making me smarter. Can you tell us what a diaspora is, and then give us a tiny history lesson about Armenia and why there exists an Armenian diaspora?
Yeah, absolutely. So the diaspora just means a group of people located outside of their original homeland. So for Armenians, the majority of Armenians are actually outside of Armenia. Many Armenians were displaced after the Armenian genocide in 1915, where 1.5 million Armenians were annihilated. Wow. So right now, about 3 million Armenians live in Armenia proper.
1.5 million, that is literally 25% of the 6 million Jews that were exterminated in World War II.
Mm-hmm. And there's actually a famous quote by Hitler that stated, "Who, after all, speaks today of the annihilation of the Armenians?" And I mean, it is disastrous and unfortunate, but we are a strong community. And I mean, there's 3 million Armenians in Armenia. There's double that in the diaspora, and we're not being annihilated for sure.
Okay, the new vocabulary word is going to become relevant later in the show, folks, because we're going to talk about how the Armenian diaspora felt about Houry's performance in the 2016 games. So before we get there, let's talk a little bit about your family. How did they get to the United States? I know it was by way of Lebanon. Were you born in Armenia? Do you have siblings? When did everybody get here and why?
Yeah. So my sister and I have one sister. She's older than me. Are first generation Armenian Americans. So we were both born here in the United States.
Okay.
My parents grew up in Lebanon. Both my mom and my dad.
You should know
And
we're in Tennessee and we have a town that's spelled like Lebanon, but for some reason we pronounce it Lebanon.
oh, okay. Well, they were born and raised in the country of Lebanon. And then my great grandparents were actually the ones that escaped the Armenian genocide and immigrated to Lebanon, raised their kids, who were my grandparents. And then my parents ended up leaving Lebanon during the 80s, during the civil war there. And then my sister and I, born and raised here in the States.
Wow. So the Gebeshian family's really been through the ringer. First, they had to escape a genocide in the early 1900s. And then in the later part of the 1900s, when the country that they adopted as their home was going through a civil war, they had to escape again. And this time it was all the way across the Atlantic Ocean.
Yep. Yep.
Wow. All right. So talk to me about some of the culturally significant Armenian traditions that your family kept. Because counting you, I've only met 3 Armenians in the gymnastics universe or whatever, and every one that I've met has an extreme amount of what I would call healthy pride in the fact that they are Armenian. So was this true of your family? Is your heritage very important to you guys? Talk to me.
Yeah, I think most Armenians feel a sense of pride and a sense of like the homeland is our homeland, even though we are in the diaspora. I think the language is what unites us. I mean, Armenian is its own separate language, not like any other. I grew up speaking Armenian. My family speaks Armenian. After leaving home and going to college and, adapting to US life, I guess. I stopped using my Armenian, so I'm not as fluent as I used to be, but it comes back when I'm back with my family. So I think the language is super important for my family. There's, traditions as far as like dishes that we eat, holidays that we celebrate, things like that, I think
So
are important.
dishes, in the United States, we're primarily beef, pork, and poultry.
Mhm.
What is Armenia the same type of stuff, or are they like a lamb or goat or?
We have a lot of lamb. We eat lots of meats, grilled meats,
Oh,
lots
sounds
of
like heaven.
garlic.
Oh, you
Yeah,
had me at
it's
meats, and now you got me at garlic.
yeah, it's good stuff. Lots of good dishes.
All right, so vampires aren't safe in Armenia.
Definitely not.
You're listening to Stick the Landing podcast by Iron Business Solutions. How would you like to have Tom Forrester or Mary Lee Tracy for one-on-one private sessions as your team mentor? Check out the Iron Business Solutions Gold Medal Team Package on the web for more information. Link in the description. With all of that fascinating culinary stuff behind us, let's shift gears just a little bit and let's stay in your childhood, but let's start to integrate gymnastics here. Tell me, how old were you when you started gymnastics? What prompted it? Were you one of those kids that was like flipping on the couch and mom said, I got to get this kid out of here? And where did your gymnastics journey begin?
Yeah, I think we all have that same story, right? Like we're just rambunctious little kids. My mom likes to tell the story of me like getting out of my car seat one day when she was driving to the grocery store. And so she was like, I got to find a place for her. So she took me to a local YMCA when I was 5. And they were like, she needs to go to a legit gymnastics facility. She has some type of talent in her. And so lucky for us, right literally in our backyard was a gymnastics gym. She started me there when I was 5, and that was my gymnastics home, MGC Waltham, for the
Shout
next,
out. Woo woo.
yeah, for the next however many years until I was 18 years old.
Wow, awesome. Stayed with one club your entire JO career.
Yeah.
Awesome. And it was just a JO career, right? You didn't venture into the elite world until much later, in fact,
Correct.
post-college. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. I had no interest whatsoever in doing the elite stuff.
We talked at breakfast, and you had 2 really funny, what I thought were funny and relatable stories. One from when you were about 6, trying a different gymnastics gym, and another much later, which will bring us to a debate about beam or bars. But
Right.
let's
Right.
start with the 6
Okay.
story. Talk to me.
Okay. So My best friend in first grade, her name was Krista. She also did gymnastics, but she went to a different gym than I did.
Who was better?
Um, that was always a battle between me and her. I mean,
Okay.
I think we had some strengths. She was the type that was just super talented and could just show up and compete and do awesome. And I was the like really hard worker that would show up and compete and do awesome, but it took a lot of work to get there.
Hmm.
So we were
Did she
just
also do collegiate gymnastics?
no, she ended up quitting in high school
Okay.
once we got to high school. But she was wonderful. And so she went to the gym that Mihai Brestian was coaching at before he opened up his own gym. And there was, bring a friend day. And so Krista said, "Hey, why don't you come to my gym and try my
How
gym?"
typically 90s.
I know.
Bring a
Bring
friend
a
day to
friend day.
gymnastics. Yeah.
And so I was, excited. Let me go to Bring a Friend Day. I get to do gymnastics with my best friend. And I showed up, and Mihai, I love the man. I think he's incredibly knowledgeable.
Yep.
But as a 6-year-old, I was intimidated by this man that didn't quite make Bring a Friend Day as fun as you would think Bring a Friend Day would be.
Should be, right? Yeah.
So after class, I said, "You know what, Krista, maybe you should try my gym." And she came to Bring a Friend Day at MGC. And then she was like, "This is awesome," and switched over to my gym. And we ended up doing gymnastics until high
Wow.
school together.
So now Mihai hates you because you stole one of his customers from
No,
him.
we actually have a great relationship. I think he's wonderful. And throughout my high school career, we competed against Brustrians all the time. My mom even moved us to the town where he opened up his new gym so that I could go to that gym. And I respect Mihai. I think he has phenomenal athletes, but I had the loyalty of my gym that I unfortunately made my mom drive me 45 minutes to
I
the gym every day so I could keep going to my gym.
I think extreme type A people, and I say this knowing that you are, but I am as well, have like a loyalty gene. Like it's hard for us to be disloyal. Betrayal hurts us more or whatever. So I respect that. I'm going to tell the audience a funny story from my young gymnastics career.
Okay.
I did high school gymnastics back in the days when, like, that's what you did. Like, people went on and did college from high school. You didn't have to do club gymnastics. And we worked out in the main gymnasium, but down in there was like the main gymnasium where all the basketball and whatever happened. And then the bleachers go up this side. And then at the top was a balcony, and there's like a little rail there. And on one side were half of the men's events, and on the other side were the other half of the men's events. So I'm over here on this side that has pommel horse, floor, and it was really just a tumbling strip, and vault. And this is back in the day when we had the Twinkie vault people, long horse vault. And for whatever moronic reason, the people who set up this gym thought, you know what's a good idea? Let's put the vault right up against the guardrail. So if you vault a little sideways, you plummet to your death.
Oh my gosh.
True story.
Oh.
So my good buddy, and he lived across the street from me at the time, and we grew up doing gymnastics together, John Hamilton, is down at the other end of the vault runway, and I'm not paying attention. I did a tumbling pass, and commotion was happening because it was raining, and the cheerleaders were inside working out on that day. And I wanted to see what was going on. So I walk over to the Twinkie table, and I go to lean on it and look down and check out the cheerleaders right as Hammy hits the board to do a cause. So you non-gymnastics people, that's a kazamatsu. It's basically a full twisting, but inside out, sukahara. Lots of flipping, lots of twisting, and I'm on the horse that's only as wide as a Twinkie. And he does his half on, and one of his arms is on me, and he thankfully bails out and doesn't die. Thankfully for him, he doesn't die. Not thankfully for me. I'd have been better off if he died.
Oh, no.
Because in the 80s, coaches didn't have to yell at you or discipline the team because the team, especially in men's stuff, like handled its own discipline. And let's just say Hamilton gave me a beating that I would remember to this day. And now, anytime I walk across any vault runway, I check, I double check, and
both ways.
do not get in people's ways. Now, I say that like a little tongue-in-cheek. He did rough me up pretty good, but he and I are still good friends. He's coming to Nashville in September, and we're going to play golf and whatever. And based on that last beating, I'm going to let him win because I know the score.
For eternity,
Yeah.
he gets to win?
Well, I just don't want to get beat up again. I know what he's capable of. there's funny stories from youth. Let's move ahead. Let's get you to your sort of college era. Which schools were recruiting you?
I got recruited by the University of Iowa, obviously, Iowa State, Illinois, Ohio State, New Hampshire, West Virginia, and Denver. I think those were the majority of people that I was chatting with.
Okay. So the Big Ten was heavy into Houry over there.
Yes.
All right. So you eventually settled on Iowa. What attracted you to that program, or what sort of put the nail in the coffin that had you go, okay, Iowa's where I'm going?
Yeah. I chose Iowa because it was actually the only program that would let me do my major, which was athletic training, as well as be a student athlete at the same time. Which I understand now after doing both of them, why most programs say, hey, you got to choose one or the other because it's a lot. But yeah, I chose it because it had my major.
Let's rank a few of these. Like, if everybody were to allow that, what would have been your top choice, maybe even your second choice, and where would Iowa have fit in that? And this
Yeah.
is not offensive or whatever. This is just, come on, we're learning about who she is.
Yeah, I loved Iowa State. Loved it.
Wow, they're rivals. Oh my
I
gosh,
know.
in-state rivals. Did you guys always have a duel between you and Iowa State?
Yep.
And the 4 years that you were at Iowa, who won?
I mean, I remember winning a few times. I honestly can't remember like who won the most. We've definitely won some. They've definitely won some, but can't say who won the most.
Okay, so they were your number one choice. Who would have been your backup?
Honestly, I can't remember.
Where would
I mean,
Iowa have been on the list?
Iowa was actually pretty low. Iowa was the last visit I took. I had to choose between taking a visit to Denver and taking a visit to Iowa as my last visit, because back then you only got to go to 5
Right.
schools, and like I could only go to the ones that were going to pay for me to go to. And so I ended up going to Iowa, and it ended up working out. But honestly, I really liked Ohio State, but they chose other athletes. Iowa State chose other athletes.
Ohio State didn't offer you, neither
Nope.
did Iowa State? Oh,
Nope.
wow.
Nope.
I didn't realize that.
So yeah, it was kind
You
of.
had skills. You were good. You won a Big Ten title on beam.
I mean, they didn't know that, but I am a beamer. We didn't tell them my
You-
story about beam, but I am a beamer.
You aren't a beamer. You're a bars kid. You're a bars kid.
I mean, beam and bars. I'll give you both of those. But.
Okay. But primarily bars. All right. Well, one thing I know for sure that we do agree on is we agree first that the sport of gymnastics is really good for kids, that essentially all kids should take gymnastics for some period of time.
Definitely.
And we also agree that the collegiate experience is like the dessert. This is what you get. But you ate all your meat, you ate your stupid broccoli, and now you can have your sundae. And it's really good for kids. And one of the things that I like to say is that your D3 experience at Centenary is veritably the same as your D1 experience at Oklahoma. The only difference is the size of the crowd and the championships won. Because the things that you'll really take away from your collegiate experience is the camaraderie, the life lessons, the lifelong friendships, and even some of the support that is available to you as a student athlete that isn't available to the regular population, right?
Definitely.
So give us 3 or 4 highlights or funny stories or whatever in your time from your collegiate experience at the University of Iowa, which was your last choice.
Yeah. It ended up it was a good choice. It was the right fit for me academically, socially. I mean, athletically, I think it wasn't the best, but hey, that's a story for a little bit later in this podcast. But I think what really stands out to me when thinking back in college were those things that you're talking about. You know, my teammates that are still my best friends. You know, some of those meets that we traveled to, you know, the experiences that we had. And one of my best years there was my junior year, which, you know, the team we were all on the same page. We got along. There was no, you know, just nagging. There was
No
no
drama.
drama. It was just everything was awesome, and it culminated in competing at Big Tens and winning third as a team, which was huge
A
for
big
us.
deal for Iowa.
Big deal for we were
Really?
last a lot of the time. So
Oh.
like we kicked it into gear. We got third, which is awesome. I ended up getting my balance beam title, Big Ten title, that year too, and it was such an incredible experience
Which
to
is
have
your
that with our team.
main evidence as to why you're a beamer, because you're a Big Ten champ. Now, you
Correct.
did get third place at Big Ten on bars,
I did. I
right?
can't remember if it was that year, but
But it
at
was
some point
some
I
year you
did.
did, which is
Yes,
nothing
yes.
to.
I will tell a funny story though, because
Okay, I like funny stories.
yeah, that year I showed up to Big Tens, and for those big meets, we have a practice day. And we just practice on all of the events the day before the competition. And I opened up my grip bag and I had one grip.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah. I had my backup pair of grips, which were like this old, like way worn out pair of grips, and then my one pair of like my good grips. And so I managed to get through practice with my old grips.
I need to stop you. I need to make
Okay.
a public service announcement, because as the bar coach in our gym, I stressed all the time to my athletes, you know who you are, the importance of having a backup pair of grips. And not just having a backup pair of grips, but having a reasonably broken in, and I use them a couple times a week, pair of grips for just such a scenario
Yep.
where a grip breaks or you forget one, and you don't want it to be the grips you haven't worn in 5 years or you haven't taken out of the package yet, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
This has happened. All right, sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
So I forgot my grip, and I never made this mistake again. I broke in.
You were in college. How many more opportunities did you have to make that mistake?
I made a lot afterwards. But yeah, so I showed up, I practiced with my worn out grips, and we got done with practice, and it's like 4 o'clock or something like that. And I called one of my teammates that was at home. She was injured, so she didn't travel with us. And I said, hey, we have like about an hour until the post office closes. I need you to go to the
post
Yeah, yeah. There was no UPS back then or whatever. So
Back in my day, Sonny, we put a stamp on it.
and so I said, hey, can you please go to the gym, find my grip, like go to my locker, find my grip, get to, the post office, overnight this, and, I need it for tomorrow. And she tells me, sorry, I can't do it. I don't have any money. And I was like, I will pay you however much it is plus double. Like, please go do this. Oh, sorry, I can't do it.
Oh, you're kidding.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And Larissa had no idea that I forgot my grips because, I practiced, it was fine. But I knew like I couldn't do a great bar routine with those old grips. So and I'm frantic. And now, the clock is ticking. It's getting close to 5 o'clock. And so luckily our former athletic trainer was still in the athletic training room. And so I got in contact with him. He had one of the athletic training students find my grip, go to the post office, mail my grip, sent it to the hotel. The following morning, I get this call from Larissa that said, meet me in the lobby.
Yikes.
And I was like, oh my God, like what happened?
confession time.
Yeah. And she was like, there's a package for you. And I was like,
And you're like, it's drugs. I promise it's drugs.
and I was like,
I didn't forget my grip.
And she was like, what's in the package? And I was like, my grip? You forgot your grip? I was like, well, it's going to be fine. I have my grip now. It's going to be okay. And then, it ended up being great. I hit my bar routine, hit an excellent
Thank
beam
heavens.
routine. We
Oh,
got
beam.
third. It was fine. But, it was a stressful Big Ten championship. But it was great.
All right. Forgot your grip. It's drugs, I swear. We were just going to party.
Oh, man.
All right. So at some point, and I don't remember, this would have been somewhere around your sophomore or junior season, you got a crazy idea and you said to yourself, hey, I think I'd like to make a run at the Olympics in London in 2012. And then you began a process. So tell us first, what was the straw that broke the camel's back to make you say, yep, I'm going for it? And then tell us, what kind of hoops did you have to jump through in order to make it happen? Because at this point, you were not an Armenian citizen, or?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Go.
Yeah. So actually, my mom growing up always thought like, hey, you should compete for Armenia. You should do this. And I was like, no way. Like, I'm not good enough. There's no way. Like, I don't want to pursue that at all. And then I got into college and somehow like the stars aligned and my dad was actually very good friends, like college friends with a person that was like the liaison to the Armenian Olympic Committee. And the Armenian Olympic Committee was kind of put under pressure by the IOC to have more female representation on their
We're going to
teams.
talk about that in a little bit, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah. And so, this friend reached out to my dad and said, hey, does your daughter still do gymnastics? Because I grew up doing gymnastics with his daughters who didn't end up continuing on in gymnastics. And my dad was like, yeah, like what's going on? And so he invited him over for, a cookout in the summer. My dad loves to do these huge cookouts. And he asked me if I would be interested in representing Armenia. And I said, like, I don't know, am I good enough? Like, what does it take? What is this? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, if you're competing in college and doing well there, I don't see why you wouldn't be good in the elite realm, which like little did this guy know, like it's a totally different code. But whatever. So I said, great, fine, let's figure it out. So he helped connect me with the right people in Armenia. I had to go to Armenia. I think it was the summer after my junior year or sometime during my junior year, I went to Armenia the first time, met the people on the Armenian Olympic Committee, met the gymnastics, like the men's gymnastics team and their head of federations, put in the paperwork to get my passport and my citizenship, which was interesting story. Like you had to fill out all of this paperwork, you had to take a test, which was in Armenian. And like I never learned how to read Armenian and it was like in written
Do they
Armenian.
use the Cyrillic alphabet?
It's its own alphabet.
Oh
like
my.
completely own alphabet. So I'm staring at this thing and I'm like, I don't even know what this says. And the person was like, just sign your name. We'll take care of it.
So somebody else filled out the test for you?
Must have. I don't know. So then, I trained a little bit there and they were like, I don't know, this girl.
Yeah, because
We'll
when
see.
you trained, you were still a collegiate athlete and it was over
Right.
the summer, right before the season, right?
Mhm.
And your collegiate coaches told you, don't do anything but basics.
Right. Because the equipment there was not great.
Right, yeah.
And, they were like, we can't afford for you to get injured. Just do
So
the bare
the
minimum.
Armenian gymnastics authority or whatever is watching you do, basics and going, we can't take this to the what's going on here?
Right.
What are we?
Right. So
Yeah,
I
all
was
right.
like, I promise, like I can do more. I swear.
What year is this again? This is
This is 2010.
10-ish? Okay, yeah,
2010.
yeah.
Yep. So I did that and then I had to go back to Armenia one more time to like pick up my passport and, fill out some more paperwork, whatever. And then I was good to go. And that was that.
Okay, so I'm going to scoot forward to the 2011 World Championships. Now, I knew you were there. You and I didn't know each other personally, but we have a mutual friend. And she was telling me that her good friend was at World Championships and whatever. So I, in the research for this podcast recently, went and looked up the 2011 World Championships. And when I put together our original stuff, there were a ton of questions like, well, what upgrades did you need? How did you accomplish that? Blah, 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 blah. Because in almost every way, the 2011 World Championships went as bad as they could have gone for you. And that was due mostly to an untimely injury. So talk to us about what that injury was and how the meet went down and what was behind the decision to ultimately go ahead and compete all the events.
Yeah.
So go.
Yeah. Oh, man. 2011, it was a little bit of a disastrous meet, but was proud I did it. It was my very first international elite competition.
Bizarre, right? Whose first ever elite meet, and not just international, but even you didn't compete in an elite meet, an elite qualifier for crying out loud in the United States. Your first event is World freaking Championships.
Right.
All right. That's
so
we'll talk about jumping into the deep end.
Right. Intimidating. But, I was there. I was grateful to be there. But yeah, I developed a stress fracture in my heel a couple of weeks before leaving for Tokyo, which is where the World Championships were. And it was like just enough time to not heal enough, but like not enough time to like train, like it just wasn't great. And so I ended up during those couple of weeks not doing vault and floor, hoping that like maybe it would heal, like maybe it would feel okay. I trained bars and beam a little bit, like no mounts, no dismounts,
Mm.
just a little bit here and there. But honestly, I went into the world championships thinking, hey, you know what? I'm just going to do my best on 2 events and we'll make the most of it. Like this can be an experience. I've already paid for it. We're already going. Like let's just go. And so we showed up and I had a couple training days. They went okay. And then the day before the competition, at the end of the training session, looked at my coach. Linus was my college coach at that time. He
He
actually
is super
came with
smart.
me.
He's Lithuanian, right?
Mhm.
And this is why his name is Linus.
And so he's actually the one that encouraged me to represent Armenia. Like I had a lot of doubt thinking that I could do it. And he was like, no, absolutely. Like you should try this. This is an amazing opportunity. So really grateful to him. But anyway, we finished practice and we were sitting in the stands watching the other athletes just train for the day. And we looked at each other and he was like, what if we just tried? Like we're here. Why don't we, just figure it out? And like my foot hurt so bad that like I couldn't even run down the
This was
vault
in your
runway.
heel?
My heel, yeah.
Yeah.
And I couldn't run down the vault runway. It hurt to punch, but I was like, you know what? It's not going to get any worse. Like it's already broken. So why not? So we went to the.
Now, as somebody who's got a medical degree, do you agree with that statement? It's not going to get any worse.
Yeah, actually.
Okay, all right.
It wasn't.
Well, fair
it wasn't
enough.
going to get worse. It was already broken. So
Okay.
I mean, could I have hurt something else because I was favoring,
Yeah.
not that foot? Maybe, probably. But
Yeah, all right.
that injury itself wasn't going to get any
Well,
worse.
I ask because in my whole life, I've never made a dumb decision.
Never.
Maybe just now the decision to make that statement. All right, sorry. You're at World Championships,
Yeah.
and you guys just say, "Screw it, let's compete
try.
all 4. We're here."
Mhm.
And that meant because didn't you already finish your training?
Yeah.
So you were going to compete cold.
Well, no, there was another training session like in the evening that was
Okay.
available for like an hour. And so I said,
Okay.
okay, and all I wanted to know was how was I going to get down the vault runway? Because I was like, I can just hopefully chuck a floor routine and it will hopefully be okay.
Who thinks that? Who says, well, I'll just chuck a World Championships floor routine?
I mean, it was the routine I had done for 5 years, right? I
How
double
many of
pike-
those years was your heel broken?
Well, none.
Okay. All right. I just want to clarify so the audience knows.
Right. So, that was the plan for floor. If I could figure out how to run down the vault runway, I would do a layout, a Yurchenko layout. And that was the plan. So I figured it out. And then on the day of competition, I started on vault and I made a Yurchenko layout. It wasn't pretty.
So
but I made it.
can I make a confession here?
Yeah.
When I was researching the 2011 championships, the first video that came up was your vault.
Yeah.
And I said, what the bleep?
I know. It was
What?
embarrassing.
How was she even competing in Iowa? How bad was that team?
Right. Ugh. And then it was just like stupid thing after stupid thing. And we went to bars and I couldn't punch off the board to do my mount. So I had to do a squat on, which was a big deduction in elite. And then beam, I mixed up like my jump series and I did 2 split jumps, which like my split jumps were terrible, but that
Oh
was a
my
special
gosh, because
requirement.
It's on beam and you messed it all up.
And
Sounds like you're
it was
better
just
at bars than you are beam.
Oh, jeez. Hey, I hit my beam routine.
Okay.
I mean, I messed up that little jump, but I stayed on. And then floor.
Did you stay on the bars?
I did stay on the bars.
Okay,
I
I was just
had a big
checking.
step on my landing. Did you see that?
It's hard to see all. Hard to
The
recall all of the
disaster.
things.
And then floor, I landed my passes, but it wasn't a great showing of my gymnastics, but I did all 4 events and that was the experience.
And I know we're joking about this, but in reality, when I'm preparing for this show, I sent you a series of questionnaires, right? And one of the things was like, hey, what upgrades did you need? How are you planning to get those? Blah, blah, blah. And when you sent it back, the note that you scribbled on in pen said, I wasn't planning on upgrading anything. And when I read that, I was like, what in the Sam Hill? Like, I swear I watched this girl's 2016 Olympic, and it wasn't this.
Yeah.
But then I kept reading in the thing
Yeah.
in it, and
As long as we don't put the videos
we will not.
up,
We will not.
it'll be
You're
okay.
listening to Stick the Landing podcast by Iron Business Solutions. As a gymnastics club owner, do you set your tuition according to what your competition in the area is charging? Do you wish your program generated more revenue so you could afford to pay you and your staff what you're worth? We have a tuition calculator package that for less than $500 will do a full market analysis, give you your low tolerance, high tolerance, and sweet spot for your tuition, as well as a plan including marketing materials to get your tuition up to market tolerance. Adjust your tuition to charge what you're worth confidently thanks to the tuition calculator package. Check us out on the web for more information. Link in the description. All right, so 2012 was a no-go. And how soon after the 2011 World Championships did you decide to make a run at 2016? What, like, did you immediately just go, well, I can't finish on this. I'm going 2016 or bust. Or were you kind of burned out at this point?
Yeah, I wanted nothing to do with gymnastics at this point. I was devastated because I missed the test event, the Olympic test event, which then qualified you to the 2012 Olympics. I missed that by one spot, which was like 0.2 or something like that, like something stupid.
Oh.
And then from the test event.
And what was the amount of time between the test event and the actual Worlds?
It was like Worlds was in October and the test event was like April.
So plenty of time for your heel to heal. And you could have gone to the test event and done real gymnastics. Oh, my gosh.
So,
now, okay, then I'm going to ask you this, and you're surprised. Here's another follow-up to this.
Yeah.
But at some point when you were competing at the 2011 Worlds, did you sort of throw in the towel and, like, not try your hardest? So then when you learned that you were only 0.2 away, did you go, son of a biscuit, I could have done this. Yeah. I could have done this. Oh, my gosh.
100%. Like,
that had to be hard.
Beat myself up over it because it 0.2. It's one step. It's that stupid squat on I did. It's
so if you exist just in the JO, I guess DP world now, so you don't have kids that do elite. Like in JO, you take a step and it's a 1/10. In fact, you can take a tiny step and get a 0.5 for that. There's no such thing as that in the elite world. The minimum deduction on a landing now is 0.2. Minimum. So yeah.
So yeah, it was one little thing. But so I was a reserve for the test event. And then from there, the majority of athletes made it onto the Olympic Games. Only 2 people didn't make it.
And
so
you were one of those.
I was one of those. And then I ended up being a reserve athlete for the Olympic Games. But even if you get hurt, who's going to drop out of the Olympic Games? Nobody.
Right?
Yeah. So
apparently they don't drop out of World Championships either when they're hurt. All right. So I think that there were 2 like consequential events that happened in that time period that I think might have altered your life, and you can correct me here. One is the birthday party story.
Oh, they had good intentions.
Sure. But I think it had a profound psychological effect that in the moment was hurtful and we'll talk about this. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to spoil it. And then the second one was at World Championships, you ran into Dominique Moceanu.
Yes.
And that becomes relevant later on. But so tell us about each of those events and why was running into Dominique relevant.
Yeah.
Go.
So Dominique Moceanu was my childhood idol. Like, grew up watching her and I was like, I want to be her.
Well, this is embarrassing that it was your childhood idol when I was a full-grown adult watching Moceanu the child do gymnastics. Thank you for making me feel old. This will be your last visit on Stick the Landing.
Well, hey, let's make the most of it.
All right, go ahead.
So I finished my World Championships, which was not the greatest, but hey, I did it.
Yep.
And I watched.
By the way, your performance at World Championships destroys my performance at World Championships. I literally got zeros because I never went.
Truth.
So as much as I'm making jokes about, well, you weren't this and this, like, still better than what I did. All right. Sorry, I keep cutting you off. Go ahead.
Okay. And so I finished the competition. I went into the mix zone to like talk to the media, which I wasn't expecting anybody to talk to me because who am I? Um,
The
but
the first alternate to the Olympic test event.
truth. And so I'm just going through, moseying along, whatever. Nobody's talking to me. And then
So you didn't demand a free first class upgrade on the way home and tell the airline, "Do you know who I am?"
you must respect me.
Okay. All right.
No,
All right. All right.
definitely not.
Focus. Focus.
And so I'm just getting ready to get out of there, and I actually get stopped by Dominique Mucciano, who is there with her husband doing media, and she wants to do an interview with me. And I was starstruck. Dominique wants to
Yeah.
talk to me. And I don't even know what we talked about, but she just interviewed me about who knows what. And then I went about my way, literally being like, oh my gosh, I just met my childhood idol. This is crazy. And then she and her husband were actually on the same flight home as me. And I had collected myself a little bit by that time. It was a couple weeks later.
Good job.
And
Wait, you got to stay in Tokyo for a couple of weeks during the World Championships event?
I was one of the like first competitors, and then I stayed the rest of the time to watch like the finals.
Oh,
and
wow.
it's a bit. I mean, it's a 2-week long competition, so I was there for a while.
But isn't that self-funded?
It was.
So you had to foot the hotel bill for those
Yeah.
2 weeks, and you had to live with yourself, like with the sort of disappointment of what happened and the constant reminder.
Truth. I mean, I don't think I was. I mean, I was disappointed, but then I just made the most of being in
The thing
Tokyo.
is, and I'm asking these questions I'm trying to place myself
Mhm.
in that position, and especially a 20-something-year-old, Ken. You and I have only known each other 5 or 10 years, something short like that. But I have always been impressed that you are mature beyond your years. And so I suspect, especially based on some stories I've heard about you in college, that you were mature beyond your years then too. And a 20-year-old Ken wouldn't have been able to handle that. In fact, I think a 20-year-old or whatever you were, Ken, in Tokyo would have been looking for the first passage out of there because I wouldn't have been able to live with the reminder of the disappointment that I just went through. So good for you, because the reality is, because you had the mature perspective, you stayed there, you watched those other things, and you actually, I think, at least enjoyed that, at least
Yeah.
enjoyed watching the gymnastics and being in Tokyo and
Yeah, I mean, I think
whatever.
my mentality was like, I'm never gonna have, because I didn't want anything to do with gymnastics after this. So I was
Mm.
like, I'm never gonna have the opportunity to watch these world-class athletes do the thing that I love to do, right? And so I just tried to like soak in the
Mm.
experience as much as I could, and I was just honestly, I was grateful to be there. So yeah.
All right.
So I met her on the
Oh, yeah,
airplane,
yeah.
right?
Mochianu
I
and her.
see her and her husband on the airplane, and I got up the courage to actually talk to them. And her husband, Mike Canales, is a physician working in foot and ankle surgery in Cleveland,
Cleveland,
Ohio.
Ohio. This is relevant.
Yes. And he asked me, what's your plan? And I said, well, right now I'm an alternate. So if I don't make it to the Olympics, which slim chance, I am going to apply for PA school and hopefully go to PA school. If I don't get into PA school, I'm just going to join Cirque du Soleil or do something like that. And so he said, well, if you go to PA school and you want to do a clinical rotation with me, I'd be happy to host you. And so I
Wow.
said, well, I
What an
mean,
opportunity.
yeah, like I don't know anything about you, but your
Where was
wife is pretty
PA
cool.
school for you? Where did you go?
I went to Wake Forest in
Okay,
North
North
Carolina.
Carolina. All right.
So then, fast forward, well, I don't know if we're there yet, but
How long is PA school? How many years?
2 years.
2 years. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. So, fast forward, so I graduated from college in 2012, and then I started PA school, or 2011, and I started PA school in 2012.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so then you get accepted, you graduate PA school, you reach back out to Dominique's husband,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And that provides you the opportunity to move to Cleveland, right? And before we get all the way to Cleveland, we got to talk about the birthday story,
Oh, yes.
because I mark the Mochianu story as like the the positive influence.
Mhm.
And the birthday story starts out negative, but I think, and I want to ask you a question about it, that it probably turned into a positive. Tell us the birthday story. So
So
this is just after Worlds. We're heading into, because your birthday's
my
in
birthday's in July.
July. So we're
So
getting ready to go into the Olympics
mhm,
that you did not make.
make it.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
And I had just started PA school. So like PA school started in June. And so I just met these new friends of mine and my birthday was the following month and they knew,
July what?
27.
Oh, man, I'm July 21.
Okay. Well, oh, you're older than
Almost
me.
birthday 20. Yeah. Okay, thanks for the reminder. Where were we? PA school. You've got
Yeah,
some
I
friends.
have
It's your
some new
birthday.
friends. They, knew gymnastics was important to me. They knew I almost qualified to the Olympics. And so they thought it would be special to bake a cake for me, which very
I
special.
love cake.
I loved cake too. And
Wait, you said loved cake. Does that mean you don't love cake
no, I
anymore?
love cake. I
Okay,
love
all
cake.
right, all
It was a
right.
funfetti cake too, which is awesome. But they decorated it with the Olympic rings. And like what made it worse was my birthday was on the same day as the opening
Mm,
ceremonies of the Olympic Games.
yeah.
And it was just like, it was not a great day for me. And they were trying to do something so nice. And they just reminded
You're
me
like
that I wasn't
scraping the
there.
frosting off the cake directly into the trash with an
Yeah.
angry face. And they're like, let's watch the opening ceremonies. And you're like, no, I hear Friends has a good rerun. And you're
Yeah.
flicking on
Yeah,
Friends.
I
Yeah.
never watched it. I couldn't get myself to watch it, and I was just in such a grumpy mood. But I'm thankful that they tried.
Sure. And so the reason I think, and I could be wrong about this, but I think this could have been a pivotal moment for you because there obviously was the reminder of the disappointment and it was compounded by loving people trying to do something loving for you that you couldn't enjoy in the moment.
Mhm.
And again, I'm trying to like, how would this line up in Ken Harris's mind? And I go, well, for me, that would be a feeling that like a negative taste in my mouth that I would have to get rid of. And I'll tell you a true story that we didn't plan on that's
Okay.
similar to this. Um, my first year as being in charge of getting to be the head coach at Let It Shine Gymnastics in like 1994 or 5 or something like that. We had a one team at compulsory and then there was just a bunch of individuals and whatever. And that team got second place at state. And it was just like some like dumb little level 5 or whatever. But this is my first go of like being in charge. And my boss was so thrilled because the previous year a bunch of stuff happened with a coach quitting and whatever, and they lost a bunch of kids and the team was really bad. He was so thrilled. He went to the meet director and purchased an extra silver medal and gave it to me and
Aw.
said, "Hey, I want this to be a reminder that, yeah, what a great boss, right?" And here's the Ken Harris perspective. I hung that medal in my closet. So every day when I got dressed, I had to be reminded that we didn't win.
Oh.
The next year, we had 3 teams, and they all got first place. And so this is why I'm saying, like, I was horribly disappointed by the fact that we didn't win. I shouldn't have been. Like,
Yeah.
the fact that we got second was great. And my boss makes a great gesture. And instead of that gesture being like where your reaction was appropriate. Oh man, what a great boss. And my reaction was like, oh, you're rubbing it in my face. All
Yeah.
right, fine. That's going to rub in my face for the next year. And we're going to be good. So next year's medal will be gold.
Mhm.
Yeah. So did that have any kind of lingering impact? The fact that you couldn't watch, because you're a big opening ceremonies fan, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you always watch
I
it.
always watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the thing I was looking forward
So
to when I was at the
was it a
games.
thing at all where you're like, hey, I don't ever want to be back in a position where I have to miss opening ceremonies? Did that play into it, or am I just imagining because I'm Ken and I'm a weirdo?
I didn't even think about it because again, at that
I'm a weirdo. All right.
point, I still was like just hurt. And I
Mm.
didn't actually start thinking about returning back to gymnastics until I actually came to Cleveland, did the clinical rotation with Mike Canales, and met one of
Dominique's
Dominique's
husband.
husband.
So you took him up on his offer.
Yep. And then I spent a month here, or spent a month in Cleveland. And I met one of his residents who had a very similar story to me of like unfinished business. He played college football, got injured, and then ended up returning playing semi professional and feeling like he closed that chapter in his life. And after, talking back and forth with him, I kind of was like, well, I have that chapter that really just doesn't feel finished. And I want to be excited about watching the games. I
Yeah.
want to have that accomplishment. And so that's when I
So
decided I'm
that
going to
that
make
was
it.
basically going to be my next
Oh,
question. So
yeah.
you're there, you're in Ohio. You take a full-time job in a hospital, right?
Mhm.
You've got no money to pay for training. You've got nowhere to train. And at some point, and now we're learning it's this football player, your mind was changed.
Mhm.
Like an event took place and it was meeting this guy who had unfinished business. So you changed your mind. Who helped you out? Because again, no money, no place to train, and a full-time job. So who helped you out to
Mhm.
be able to train and do these things? And how in the world did you make working full-time and people she didn't work for State Farm, so it's not like she had a 9 to 5 in a cubicle behind a desk, and then at 5 o'clock she could shoot on over to the gym and coach. You talk about your schedule. How did you balance a work schedule that was with the hospital and training for gymnastics? And this isn't like, hey, I'm an adult, I go to the gym 1 hour a day and I lift some weights or whatever. Like, we're talking about somebody who's trying to make an Olympic gymnastics team. Walk us through that.
Yeah. So I was actually really like grateful that I came to Cleveland and the gym that was referred to me by Dominique and her husband Mike was Gymnastics World of Ohio
Mhm.
in Broadview Heights, Ohio.
Shout out.
Yeah, they're oh my gosh, the family is wonderful. The Gannums are, it just a super loving family. And I
Mm.
showed up and I said, hey, this is my dream. This is my goal. In the next 2 years, I want the opportunity to have somewhere to train. Unfortunately, I'm just out of school. I'm broke. I just started a job. Like I don't necessarily have any additional income that I can help, pay for training, but if I could just use your gym, could that be a possibility? And they were like, absolutely. Here's the keys to the gym. We will 100% support you in this journey of yours. And they
Wow.
were behind me. I mean, I repaid them by coaching one time a week, and
So, okay,
they were awesome.
full-time job as a PA,
Mhm.
and you were in labor and delivery, right?
Yep. So I worked one 24-hour shift and one 16-hour overnight shift, delivering babies, working on the
Goodness.
floors, seeing
Took
patients.
on a part-time job coaching and trained for the Olympics.
Yep.
Did you eat or sleep?
Honestly, my entire 2 years was eat, sleep, work, train. That's it.
Wow.
And, try and have a family life. I had,
Sure.
a relationship, stepson I was trying to raise. There was a lot going on in my life at that point. But yeah, it was a busy time of my life.
So, talk a little bit. I know this because you and I have had some preliminary conversations. We had a great like brunch or whatever today. Talk to us about the mindset change that happened between the first attempt to make the Olympics and then the second.
Yeah. My first attempt, I didn't like I was told I could do it, but I didn't really believe I could. I didn't do the work as far as like the research to see like what does it take? What is this all about? I was just like, I'm just going to show up and hope for the best. And with seeing that like just showing up and hoping for the best and having a terrible meet, I was like this close. I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this seriously
Hmm.
this time around. And like I was all in.
So
Like I
this would have been 2014.
2014.
Okay. How old were you in 2014? Is that okay to ask? You can say,
Yeah,
okay.
I was 25,
Okay.
26, somewhere around there,
Mid
25.
20s.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I knew I had 2 years to make this dream a reality, and so I focused. I made a plan. I
We're gonna talk about that.
I knew, there had to be a way to get there, and no matter, what was going to be thrown in my way, like I was going to overcome those, and I knew like I have to do this for myself.
That's what
There's
I was looking for because there was some, look,
yeah.
really, there was some authentic mental maturation that took place between these things, um, maybe not the cake from your friends, but the disappointment that led up to you not enjoying the cake, um, sort of formed something in you to allow you to have like an appreciation perspective.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where that's that mental shift that I suspected was lying underneath between the two training times. And the phrase, I got to do this for myself, I think probably played a huge part. All right. Audience, you need to know I've already confessed to Hootie that I'm a huge fanboy of her story. She and I are friends outside of this podcast and have known each other for a number of years. Um, but she did an interview. You did an interview um, outside of gymnastics world in Ohio for a local NBC affiliate when you were trying to make the push
Mhm.
for the Olympic Games. In fact, you might have already qualified. I'm not sure the timeline on this. But I'm going to read a quote and then I'm going to talk a little bit about it and why I think it's so important. And one of the many reasons why I have such a high amount of admiration and regard for you as a person. You said, and I quote, I didn't have a coach, I didn't have funding, and I didn't know how I was going to make it happen. So I created a plan to make it happen. So I'm a big Dave Ramsey guy, big financial advisor guy, Dave Ramsey. And one of the things he says all the time is the difference between a dream and a goal is a plan. So my gyms, my gymnastics gyms, and I own several of them, run essentially on autopilot. I participate in the vision process and I lead the leadership team or a couple of key people on the leadership team. But otherwise, they run on their own and they're very successful and whatever. But that was because I had a vision many years ago of being able to step aside and let these gyms run on their own and me take on other projects and said, boy, I'm here now and I want to get to here. Let me create a plan that has little incremental steps
Mhm.
to get to that place. And I won't meet every step. Sometimes I'll be a little short, but sometimes I'll exceed it. And sometimes the course moves a little and I got to make adjustments. But it's a plan that's the difference. And what I always say when people are talking about like, hey, what do you provide at Iron Business Solutions? I think one of the most helpful things I provide to gym owners when I go on, whether I'm like on-site consulting or whether they hire me for the new online stuff, is I help them extract a manageable plan out of their vision. You know, they have a vision for what they one day want their gym to be, and I listen to what that plan is and I go, "Okay, this is where you are, this is where you want to go. These are the 17 or so steps, whatever it is, that you're going to need to take. Let's mark them off and start working toward them." And people who understand that, type A, woo woo, um, get places as a result
And that's
because it's
exactly what I
intentional, it's
did.
deliberate. All right.
Mhm.
I'm going to stop patting you and me on the back here for a second. I'm going to get back to asking gymnastics questions. So, in the process of training, you were working on an original move that, if successfully competed at a world's event or an Olympic Games, would be immortalized as the Gebeshian in the Code of Points. Yes?
Yes.
All right. Tell us first the motivation behind getting a move named after you. I mean, really, do we need to know? But yeah, tell us. And about the bureaucratic process for submitting a move, and then maybe what kind of help you needed. And we'll talk even about the move itself in just a minute.
Okay. Um, so I think everybody wants their name,
Immortalized.
immortalized,
Yeah.
right? Like everybody wants a skill in the
Yeah.
code of points, and so did I. And I knew, I wasn't going to make it into a final. I had tried to like make it into the vault finals by maybe upgrading to a Yurchenko double full, and I taught myself a cause. And then I couldn't teach myself a double full. So I was like, oh, that's out of the books. What else can I do? And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to invent a skill, which like easier said than done, right? Like there's all the skills are already done. And so I opened up the code of points and I said, okay, what hasn't been done yet?
So you started a plan,
I did.
of course.
Start a plan, open up the code of points, see what hasn't been done. And I'm not Simone Biles. I can't just add an extra flip or an extra twist onto something. So I had to
Nobody
be
is Simone Biles except Simone Biles.
right. So I had to be pretty creative. And so I looked at, what skills am I doing and is there room to maybe tweak it a little bit? And I saw that there was, there's boxes in the code of points of what the skills are. And there was a box for the mount that I did. And then there was a box to a similar mount that I did, but not the one that I ended up creating. And I said, aha, this is going to be it. And so it was a whole we can talk about the whole process of how I ended up getting there. But once I got that skill, you're totally right. I had to compete it at a world or Olympic games.
It's not just compete, people. It's successfully compete. And this is going to become relevant in a minute because on some moves, there are different rules for what success is.
Which I didn't know at the time.
Let's not blow our own thunder here. Let's go. Hey, producer Tom, can you get video 1, clip 2 up for our YouTube audience? This is you competing your Gebeshian in the Olympic Games. And if you're listening, a Gebeshian is essentially a hecht mount over the low bar with a full twist. And if you're listening and you're not a gymnastics guy, that's where you bounce off of a springboard, rappel off of the low bar with your hands up to the high bar, and before you get there, you spin 360 and then catch the high bar. Here it is. Springboard, bounce, full twist, catch. Boom. At that moment, that became
the Gebeshian.
There it is.
Yep.
You're listening to Stick the Landing podcast by Iron Business Solutions. Do you feel like you're alone and on an island because gymnastics businesses face unique challenges and you're throwing mud at a wall to see what sticks? How would you like to have Ken Harris or Tom Forrester in one-on-one private sessions as your business mentor? Check out the Iron Business Solutions Gold Medal Business Package on the web for more information. Link in the description. All right.
And
awesome.
For me, so you asked about, what's that process like to get that skill?
Because somebody had to help you.
Yes. And, I had no idea. And luckily...
Because you didn't have a coach, you were training yourself. Because normally, like the process for this is your coach submits video and paperwork, and it gets assigned a D value, which, by the way, I need you to tell me what the D score was. But tell me who helped you and how you got this done.
Right. So during the months between the test event and the Olympics, Steve Butcher
great guy, one of the real good guys in gymnastics, and he's good for men's gymnastics, women's gymnastics,
he was awesome.
Great guy for the sport. We're lucky to have him.
Definitely. The way we got connected was he was actually like an ozone leotard rep,
right?
And so
this guy's done so much. He was McCready's coach. John McCready's coach back in California. He helped them do something to get Flip Fest started. I don't remember, but he was a FIG judge forever. And then after being a FIG judge, he had some kind of important title.
The technical director.
Yeah, that's right. For FIG.
Yeah.
Not for USA Gymnastics, for all the way up there. That's right. Okay,
so big, important guy somehow helping me with the leotards I'm going to wear at the Olympics. And I asked him, because he's the director of the FIG, and I was like, what is this process if I want to get a skill named after me? And he said, okay, we need video that needs to be submitted.
He said, I saw your 2011 Worlds. You suck. Don't try.
Don't even try. So I had to get video of it, and then there's paperwork to fill out, like you said. So I filled out that paperwork. I made sure Levon, the coach that went to the Olympics with me, submitted that paperwork. It had to be submitted before podium training because the judges needed to be able to evaluate it.
Yeah, they have to give it a value.
Yep.
You can't just compete a skill and then have them go, well, I don't know what to give this. Yep.
Right. And then from podium training, then it had to get approved by Nellie Kim, and then it was given a value, a difficulty value.
What was the difficulty value? I'm going to interrupt and then you can get back on track.
It was valued a D.
A D. Okay, so this is what people at home need to understand if you don't know how this works. All the skills in gymnastics have a letter value, A through, and presently I think J is the highest in women's. And A is worth 1/10, B is worth 2/10, C is 3/10, and so on, all the way up. In general, when you're competing at this international level, you are trying to load up your routine with D's, an occasional C, and anything higher than D. So a D mount is on uneven bars unheard of. Nobody does a D mount.
Right.
So this was unique because it was unique, and unique because nobody's going to get a D in a mount. And a mount is a required skill for the ones that they count. It isn't anymore, but I'm pretty sure it was in 2016. And if not, maybe it was.
I don't know if it was in the 2012 code or 2016 code, but it was one of the
so
codes
whatever
I had to use. But yeah,
you needed it,
I needed
and
it.
you got a D for it, which was
huge.
great. All right, keep going. It had to be submitted.
So it
get
had
a
to be
score.
submitted. Yep, they gave me the value, and then I had to hit it on the day of.
And you had to hit it on the day of differently because, of course, so you can't just say, hey, I'm making up this new skill, try it, flop all over the place, and go, hey, this is my skill, even though you didn't make it. The rules say that you have to successfully make it. Now, if this is on, let's say it's on balance beam, and you have some new flip, and you fall on the flip, you can get back up and try again. Mm-hmm. And if you make it, it's still called the Gebeshian. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a chance, and I've been out of the elite world since 2021, 22, something like that. And they're always changing their rules that you might not get credit for the skill. Like you might not get the D or whatever when you try it on the second time, but you still get your name.
Yeah, I think you're correct on that.
But
it's different for a mount.
Tell us about mounts.
So they have a rule where you only have one opportunity to do a new skill if it is a mount. And if you miss it, you can't do it again.
It's not the Gebeshian anymore.
It's not.
Yep.
Yeah. Even
and
if
on
you
top
do it
of that, you're warming up bars, which is your first event, your best event, because you're a bars kid, your best event, and you're warming up your first event, bars. And how many of those mounts did you make in warm-ups?
None.
And it was even catastrophic. Didn't you bang your shins on the low bar?
I had bruises up my legs. I was smashing my hands into the bar. Like the bounce on the board and on the mats was different than the training I had done for the months leading up to it. And I just was not catching it. So I was just hoping that it would all work out. And I didn't know that mount rule. Like I thought, okay, if I fall, I'll try again.
Yeah.
And luckily, I made it. We saw it was successful. And after the competition, Nellie Kim, the technical director on the women's side, came up to me, congratulated me, and filled me in by saying, oh, well, it's a good thing you made it on that first try because you wouldn't have been able to do it and have it named after you.
Do you get some kind of plaque or something for getting a skill named after you?
Nope, just the little picture and the coda points.
Okay. And it doesn't even look like you.
No, it's just a little symbol and a little figurine. But I do have to credit, I will have a little shout out here to Andrea, our mutual friend. She is
Tweety, let's go.
Yeah, she's the one that actually helped invent the Gebeshian. Because she came out...
It's over. I wish you wouldn't have done that. Like now, her head's as big as the Goodyear blimp. Did you have to give her credit publicly, just privately for crying out loud?
No,
all right, thanks a lot.
She was great. And, she helped me figure out like, okay, I thought maybe I should just do a half and then catch it like a shaposh. And
gosh.
And then,
That's
do
hard.
a kip cast handstand and a pirouette and whatever. She was like, this is silly. Like, that's going to totally ruin your
the composition.
flow of the routine. And she was like, just do a full spin. And I was like, oh, okay.
Easy for you to say.
I know. And so I multiple, I should have given you videos to put up here, but like multiple landing on my back, like a, overturned turtle. And she was like, let's just play on the trampoline and figure out like, can we, spin around? And we had a boys coach, Greg, who was like, yeah, just do belly bounce. Yeah, he was great too. Belly bounce, full spin, belly bounce. And Andrea, easy peasy. She's bouncing around trampoline. And I'm struggling. This is never going to work. But it all worked out. It was great. And it was a team effort.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's back up just a little bit. Take us to the meet that officially got you qualified to the Olympics. Obviously, you had a much better Worlds in 2015. Right?
Actually, it wasn't a great Worlds.
Because you fell on... Which event?
I am a beamer.
Which event did you fall on at 2015 Worlds?
I fell on beam
Okay.
on my
Which event did you not fall on?
bars. I did not
Bars.
fall on bars.
Bars.
But yeah, my very first event was balance beam. I got up on the beam, and my very first skill, I fell off the beam. And Worlds was like the big determining factor of who was gonna qualify on,
Yeah.
because from the test event, the majority of people would make it to the Olympics.
And that was a side aerial. You didn't fall on something trivial or whatever. It was a
Right.
significant. It's
Side aerial,
a
yeah.
side aerial. Is it a D in FIG? I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And to fill in our audience, because we've got this running joke about bars and beam, and they weren't at brunch today.
Right.
Houry told me that she's a beamer, and I said, hey, listen, I've watched your videos and you're great on beam, no doubt about it, but I think you're a bars kid. And she said, no, it's beam. And I keep proving to her over and over again today that she's a bars kid, man. Like, this is.
I mean, I was known for hitting beam. It was rare that I fell off beam.
So, like, you would never fall on something as important as world championships.
I know. Or, regionals in high school leading up to nationals
Right,
in JO.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
most important meets, for some reason, I don't know what I was thinking.
At that
but
regionals, did you stay on the bars?
I did stay
Which
on
is
the bars.
is that the same that you did on beam or better? Would you say it was
I did get
better?
back up on the beam and do it, so I fell on a flight series.
Oh, this is a good story. Tell it.
So I never fall on beam, ever. And my coach
when it
knows this,
counts.
except for, I guess so. And my coach knows this, and I get up and I fell on a flight series, which I don't ever fall on a flight series, and I am shocked. I'm on the floor. I look at my coach shocked, and I was like, this was silly. Didn't even ask her what to do. I just got back up on the beam, and I did another flight series, finished the routine. And my coach loves this story because I think that was kind of the turning point of like the grittiness in me, of knowing, hey, I have this. I know I can do this.
Screw you,
and
beam. I'll show you.
I'm gonna do it, right?
Mhm.
And I had nationals on the line. Like, I very easily could have just finished the routine and gotten a decent enough score, but I was like, I know I can hit this flight series. So I got back up, hit the flight series, and ended up qualifying to nationals, thank goodness. But
So I'm
a beamer.
you're good at beam, like really good at beam, but you're a barser.
I mean, I had some I was regional bar champ that year. So
All right, so we're debating about qualifying, and we had a scare at 2015 Worlds.
Right.
And you had to be something like top 30 at Worlds in order to make it to the Olympic test event, which is where you can officially qualify. And how close was it, or were you like sweating it because of that fall on beam, or did you do well enough that I was still 20th or 15th or?
I was like in the lower half of the people that qualified, but I knew, if I just hit the rest of my routines well and didn't make any other mistakes, I should be okay. But
Okay.
I was sweating it a little bit until I got the official paperwork.
You got the paperwork.
In.
You're on to the test event, which is in Rio, just prior to the actual Olympics.
Yep.
Yeah. And test event. Walk us through.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't remember too much about the competition itself.
Did you fall on beam?
I didn't fall on beam. I didn't
Way
fall
to
on
go.
anything.
Good job.
I didn't fall on anything.
So that includes not falling on bars again.
Truth. It was a good meet, and I remember, I ended on floor, and I remember looking at my coach Levon, and I just shrugged, and I was like, well, that's the best I could do. I think I'm in, but I don't know
Man, that
yet,
is the way to
so-
go. As I've gotten older, and like I used to pray before sporting events or even gymnastics meets that I was coaching, hey, let us waste these chumps. Let's go out and win and whatever and whatever. And now when I compete, or when I was praying for my daughter as she was competing in collegiate volleyball and whatever, I'd always pray, Lord, let us have the kind of day that we can leave satisfied with our own performance. And then the things that are out of your control are out of your control, but I can still feel good. Like, hey, you went 4 for 4 at the test event, did basically the best I could and did what I came here to do. And if it's good enough, awesome. And if it isn't, then I can sleep tonight knowing I did everything I could.
Absolutely. And that's exactly how I felt, right? Like, A lot for
What
me
piece?
exactly. A lot for me was, yes, I wanted to make it to the games, but I also wanted to make sure that I felt satisfied with the work that I put in because I
Mhm.
didn't feel satisfied in 2011 for the work that I put into, for the showing that obviously wasn't great. But
Which, again, was because of an injury. I keep
right.
making jokes, but the reality was you were a much better gymnast than you were able to show at
Yeah.
that point, so
Yeah. So I did. I felt good. I felt satisfied and I was just waiting for the cards to play out to hopefully get that official statement that I was in.
Alright, so you had an interview with, Gymternet.
The Ginger.net, Lauren
Yeah.
Hopkins from the Ginger.net. Yes.
Yeah, but nothing was official, and she was like, "Yeah, you made it." What talk to me.
Yeah, so I was in the mix zone again and by this time around there was actually people that wanted to
You were
talk
an
to me.
old pro
Right.
at
This
media relations at
you
this
know
point.
it.
You had a
Yeah.
publicist and everything.
I wish. Um and so Lauren Hopkins from the Ginger.net, she was like, like you have a pretty good shot. Like you've made it in. And I'm like, no. I haven't made it yet. Like it's not official.
Yeah.
You can't bring this up yet. Like just we can't celebrate. But I was like smiling and like I was excited about it, but couldn't officially say it until
So
I got
you're
that
in
paperwork.
Rio. The
Yes.
paperwork arrives, what, around 1 AM?
Yeah, it's
In your
late at
hotel
night.
room.
Mhm.
And what happens next?
Yeah, and so they emailed it to us, so I just kept refreshing of staying up
Oh
all
my gosh,
night.
that had to be agonizing.
Oh, it was because 'cause I'm like, the last session had finished at, like, 10 or something like that, but, they had to cross all of our T's, dot all of our I's, which we know they, have made mistakes, and so
Yeesh.
like, yeah. So I'm waiting. The email finally comes through. I see my name on that list, and I am like, there's so much relief that floods through my body that I've made it. I'm so excited. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I open up the window which the windows open in hotel rooms in Brazil. I open up the window and I just scream, I made it to the Olympics. And, I don't know if anybody heard me, but I was
So
so
I
excited.
have 2 visions for how this went down. The first vision is lovely, and it's the Disney version. Like, you burst through double opening, like French doors, they open like
Yeah.
this, burst through the window, and you're in your smock, and birds land on your shoulders, and you're like, "I made the Olympics," and a rainbow shines down directly on your face,
If
and
only it
right?
was like
And
that.
it was like
I
that.
I can imagine that.
And then like reality hits me, and I go, well, there was probably a hobo sleeping behind a dumpster telling you to shut the heck up in Portuguese because he was trying to sleep.
Probably, but hey, I was still gonna scream at the top
Hey,
of my
you didn't
lungs.
speak Portuguese. For all you know, he was saying congratulations,
Truth,
right? Yeah.
truth.
Was the country of Armenia absolutely stoked um, that you made the Olympics, that you were competing, and were you a celebrity because you were the first ever female Olympic gymnast from Armenia? Were you tied into that? Did you get
I
to?
definitely was a little bit of a celebrity in the diaspora.
Okay.
And, once I qualified, once I competed, I did have a lot of people reaching out to me. They were, super excited. I did tons of visits to churches, schools, gyms, all sorts of stuff. And it was a big deal for sure in the diaspora. But I didn't really know in Armenia proper, like, was I a big deal? Like, was anybody actually interested? Did people know who I was? I ended up going back to Armenia in 2019, and when I showed up there were some people that were like, "Oh my gosh, this is you!" So it was a big deal there. I honestly had no idea
So I'm
that
going to bounce
it
back
made
and
it
forth
there.
in
But
timelines here.
yeah,
One of the things that I think needs to be mentioned is you almost missed your flight to Brazil
oh my gosh.
for the Olympics. What the heck happened?
Ugh, that was a fiasco. So there was storms in Miami, which was where the layover was. And so my original flight from Cleveland to Miami was delayed and we landed in Miami. And I had like 15, 20 minutes to get from like terminal A to terminal H or something like that in the Miami airport, which is a huge airport. And so I asked, the flight attendants, hey, can you please hold this plane? And they were like, sorry, no, you're one person. And that's, 2,000 people on that plane or however many people are on a plane. And so I am like, well, this is the Olympic Games. Like, I got to make it onto my flight. So I'm there pulling my little rolly bag, my pillow under my arm, running as fast as I possibly can through the airport, screaming, like, I'm trying to make it to the Olympics. Hold the plane. I'm like trying to skip the line. Luckily, people, I don't know if they thought I was crazy, if they knew I actually was trying to make it to the Olympics, but they let me skip the line. I made it through. I had to go through security again. I don't know why. I made it through security again. I called, like, as I'm running, I'm calling Lev on because he's on that flight. And I was like, do anything you possibly can to hold up that flight. And he's like, I can't, like, they're literally going to arrest me if I do anything more. And
Better
so
you
I'm
than
just,
me.
I know. So I'm just, I get to Terminal H and I don't know where my gate is. And I'm just screaming. I'm like, hold the plane. I'm going to Brazil. I need to make it to the Olympics. And luckily, I like get on the plane. I'm sweating.
Wow.
I'm like, oh my God, it was not a
And
very
one of the consequences
comfortable.
was that you had sore legs for 2 weeks from the run.
Not 2 weeks, but yeah, a couple of days. It wasn't until like podium training where my legs finally felt
Oh,
normal.
boy.
So maybe I should have just waited till the following day to fly out, but I was going to make it no matter what.
All right, so you made it to Rio.
Phew.
You're there. Give us something funny or unusual that happened maybe in the Olympic Village or
Yeah. I think what was challenging for me and I guess funny is that I was always wearing Armenia gear, right? Because I was Team Armenia, but I'm from the States. I speak English. And a lot of countries that were, previously Soviet Union countries spoke Russian. And so lots of people thought, hey, maybe this girl speaks Russian. Like they came up to me, like they were
so
trying
all
to
the
be
people that wanted to talk
friendly.
to you were
We're Russian
Russians or
speaking
Russian
people.
speaking, yeah.
And so I'm just going about my day and random people would come and speak to me in Russian and I had no clue what they were saying. And then all the people that spoke English didn't think I spoke English because I was wearing Armenia gear. And so it was actually really challenging to
Nobody
be.
wanted to be your friend.
Nobody
How
wanted to be my
sad.
friend. I did make friends eventually, but
Was it
yeah.
that they couldn't speak, or was it that your clothes smelled so bad because the airline lost your luggage?
Oh my God. The airline did lose my luggage.
Yes.
And I had to wear the same clothes for a week.
Which might be why people weren't talking to you,
Maybe,
not the
maybe.
language
They did
barriers.
have
They were
laundry.
faking they were faking accents.
I
Most speak English. Sorry.
luckily for me, I brought my grips and my backup grips and all of my gymnastics stuff in my
Nobody had to
carry-on.
go to the post office to send you a grip.
Yeah, no, but yeah, they lost my luggage. I think because my layover was so short that the luggage didn't make it. And every day I showed up at the office and they said, yeah, we'll go check. We'll go to the airport. We'll see if we have your bags. And I'd show up. Nope, no bags yet. No bags yet. And so luckily my family came the following week to, come watch the games. And I said, hey, when you're in the airport, please look for my bags. And of course, it was just sitting there in the closet, wherever they keep all the lost baggage. And I was like, was anybody even
Unbelievable.
looking for this bag? But
Unbelievable.
I got my stuff. It was fine.
So moving on to the competition, let me set the stage here. You've worked essentially since you were 5 years old for this particular moment in time. You've qualified, podium training is done. You're standing on the podium waiting to present and compete your first event, your best event, which is bars, and you're getting ready to compete. If you aren't watching this on YouTube, if you're at home, I'll commentate. This is the Gebeshian. She does the mount. It's successful. It's beautiful. Boom. Nails her kip cast a handstand. Does a nice giant half right on top of the bar. Piked Jaeger, and it's big and clean. Kip hand, she crawls across the bar to do a full twisting giant right into a bail that stops in a handstand and hangs there for a second. Nice toe hecht up to the high bar, no swing issues. Couple of giants and into a full twisting double, which she sticks, and all of a sudden the grin touches both earlobes. She gives herself a high five and smooches the bars. One of my favorite, my second favorite Olympic moment of all times. The first being the U.S. winning gold in '96, because we didn't know and we thought she had to make the second vault,
Mhm.
and when she did, and we won, and I say we like I was a part of it. I was home on a couch,
Hey,
but
I was watching at home too. That was inspiring. That's
yeah,
what
but
got me there.
I'm not kidding when I say that elation on your face was literally my second favorite Olympic gymnastics moment. There's just so much enthusiasm. You kiss the bar, which we found out like you guys were in a long-term relationship. And then you go through that becomes your thing.
Mhm.
And after every event, you dismount and then you kiss it. So you go to beam, which you stayed on, which is a surprise for a kid who's not very good at beam. You stayed on, you kissed the beam. Then you go to floor. How in the heck did you manage to kiss the floor?
Yeah, I mean, I think the kissing the apparatus, everyone always asks, like, was it planned? Did you know you were gonna do it? And no, like I was just so grateful, and I wanted
Yeah,
to
I could see that.
like show my gratitude to the sport, the event, the being there, and that's what came out. And once I did it once, I had to do it for all the rest of the events. And
So, of all the events, which one was the best kisser?
balance beam, of course.
Oh, now you're killing me over here. Wait, you were going to tell me how you figured out how to kiss the
Yeah,
floor.
well, because
Like,
you saw I hugged the bars and then I kissed it. Same thing with the beam. I hugged the beam and I
yep.
kissed it. And so I was like, how am I gonna hug the floor? Am I gonna belly flop on the floor? So I just knelt down and I kissed it. There was no hug technically,
All
but
right.
yeah. And then vault. I almost forgot kissing the vault, but I got back up on the podium and I kissed it.
So we're going to talk about vault. We get through bars. You did nail your beam. You nailed your floor. Also, both events. It wasn't like sometimes we go, oh, okay, you made your routine or whatever. But these were hit routines. Like you, as far as I can tell, these were routines done to the best of your ability. Like you really,
I think so. I think on floor I had some hops.
yeah, a
But
little
like
bit.
we talked about,
Yeah.
landings were hard for me. I got spotted my entire life, and I had to teach myself how to spot the floor, and that was hard. But
So speaking of hops, we're going to talk about vault. Again, listening audience, if you're not watching this, this is Houry about to compete laid out full twisting Yurchenko. And there she is already happy and presents. And here we go. Full speed ahead, running like a gymnast, not a track athlete. Boom! It's a big vault. There's some serious block. You've got some good height up there. And it looks to me like you've got time to see that landing. And for whatever inexplicable reason, here, we'll see it again here in slow motion. Just gorgeous. Big time. Off the table, straight body, head where it needs to be, sees the ground. Hop, hop. You're listening to Stick the Landing podcast by Iron Business Solutions. Do you feel like you're alone and on an island because gymnastics businesses face unique challenges and you're throwing mud at a wall to see what sticks? How would you like to have Ken Harris or Tom Forrester in one-on-one private sessions as your business mentor? Check out the Iron Business Solutions Gold Medal Business Package on the web for more information. Link in the description. What in the world? Why didn't you stick that?
I
Come
know.
on.
By that time I just wasn't thinking, right? Like
Yeah.
I had accomplished what I wanted to, right? Like I was at the Olympics. I was having the time of my life. I had people supporting me and joining me on this journey, and I was just there soaking it all in. And honestly, I didn't even think about it. I just said, "Hey, I just got to do a vault and this is my experience." So,
So
that's it.
the nice thing about it is we have since gone back and done the research to calculate, like, well, how far out of all around finals were you? And it was far enough that it was only a couple of places. You were like the second or third alternate to make.
There was 3 reserve athletes, and then I was like 3 or 4 out from
Okay,
those
so it
reserve
wasn't a lot
athletes.
of places,
Yeah.
but the gap in score was enough that at least you can leave. Like you didn't have a regret. Like, oh my gosh, I could have stuck that vault, and if I would have made
Right.
vault finals.
Right.
So or all around finals. So
Right.
that part at least was nice because we touched on it earlier that we both believe gymnastics in general is just such an awesome sport for all children, and that the collegiate experience is one that really gives to athletes. I called it the dessert. This is what you get for eating your broccoli, right? And my daughter competed gymnastics all the way up to and including level 9, and then left and did indoor volleyball on scholarship collegiately. And then thanks to COVID, got extra eligibility, graduated early, transferred and got her master's degree, and did that on somebody else's dime playing
Awesome.
outdoor volleyball. And literally last week, she and I were having a conversation about her collegiate experience. And this is what she said. I'm going to read a direct quote. She said, "More than any specific game or any play in a game, I'll remember and cherish my relationships with teammates and experiences made." Right? So you founded a company called Full Out Collegiate Recruiting in part because you want to see more people have that kind of collegiate experience. Tell us first, what is Full Out Recruiting and what was the motivation to start a company like this?
Yeah. So Full Out Collegiate Recruiting, it is a college recruiting advising company for gymnasts specifically. And we help them through the entire process of figuring out where their college home is going to be. For me, I think it is incredibly important to find that right fit academically, athletically, and socially. And that's
Mm,
what we invest a lot of our time, especially at the beginning of getting to know each athlete and parent and club to see, what is going to be that right fit. Because for me, I didn't necessarily have that. I was trying my best, trying to figure it out with not much guidance. I had a wonderful coach, Doc, who helped keep things organized, but
mm.
I didn't know what to talk to coaches about. I didn't know what to ask them. I didn't know what my priorities were other than I wanted to do this major and I wanted to do gymnastics. And so,
I'm gonna jump in
yeah.
and pay your company a compliment because my gym has had several clients of yours, and one of the things, one of the many things that I think your company does really well. Again, I'm a huge fanboy, but it's justifiable. Is you coach the athletes on how to have the conversations. Because there was nobody to coach my daughter when these colleges were calling to recruit her for volleyball. Like, what do you have to have? How do you have these conversations? What should you say? What shouldn't you say? What are they looking for?
Mhm.
And one of our most recent clients, that was one of my athletes, um, used your guidance. And I'm telling you, because I know the coach personally, where she just landed. Um, and this coach called me and said, "I just had the most wonderful conversation with your athlete." And she said, "It's so refreshing." She said, "I usually spend 15 to 20 minutes on a phone call, and I spent over an hour with her
Oh, that's
because she was
awesome.
so engaging and
Mhm.
ready to go."
Yeah. And
So,
I
and
think,
that was in large part because you guys coached her up and taught her how to have this sort of conversation and what was important. All right, sorry, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, I mean, that's the
There's fanboy.
key of the company, right? It's these athletes really learning the life skills that they need in order to communicate effectively,
Yeah.
right? And it's not just for college recruiting, it's for
Sure.
everything in
Yeah.
in their future, right? Relationships they'll have with friends, family, significant others, coaches, a job,
And
all of
this is
that
just
type
a
of stuff.
tiny sliver of the pie that full out collegiate recruiting provides. And
Correct.
and I have seen so much. I'm going to give you a chance to talk more
Okay.
about it, but
Great.
I'm as much a fan of your business
Thank
as
you.
I am of you. All right. So, how many Division 1 gymnastics teams are there?
There are 63.
So 63 times 12. That's how many scholarships. I guess not all of them are fully funded, but that's a pretty good. There's
Mhm.
about 700 ish, not quite, scholarships in total available. But typically, like school's only got 3 of
Per
those
year.
scholarships per year, so it
Mhm.
looks a lot more like less than 200. But
Mhm.
tell us about, because nowadays there are so many opportunities that aren't Division 1.
Yeah,
Talk to
yeah.
me.
And I mean, you hit the nail on the head a little while back of saying, college athletics is more than just that Division 1 scholarship, right?
Mhm.
Like you gain so much just being on that team. And that's something that I valued from being on a college team myself, right? The friendships that I made, the resources that I had being a
Mhm.
student
Yep.
athlete. It doesn't matter if you're on scholarship or you're a walk-on, if you're a Division 1, Division 3, whatever it is, like you still
And
have
these
all of
things are
those
available to athletes
resources.
that aren't available to the regular student body
Correct.
that give you an advantage when you're competing for GPAs so that you can compete for grad school or compete for a job. You have an advantage.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
so all of
Soapbox.
those I 100% am on the same page. All of those really great things of being an athlete in college are so valuable, and everybody is so caught up on, "Oh, it's a Division 1 scholarship or nothing," but there's
Hmm.
so many opportunities to continue doing the sport that we
Give me
all
a
love.
couple of quick, obviously,
There
Division 2, Division
there's
3,
yep, there's Division 2, Division 3, there's acrobatics and tumbling,
which is
which
becoming more and more popular.
so popular. It's a really great avenue for a lot of gymnasts who may not have thought like, "Oh, I can compete in college and do gymnastics, but I still want to do the similar
We talked
sport."
about this at brunch,
Mhm,
right? It used to be basically like you're going to have to get to level 10 to get to do college
mhm.
gymnastics or be a really great level 9 and maybe hook on a Division 3 or something. But even like there's enough level 10s out there that Division 3 schools can pick up level
Yeah,
10s. Yeah.
especially now.
Yeah. So that used to be the thing. But now, thanks to Acro, and we have a kid at our gym that just signed with a school, Limestone is what they're called,
Mhm.
and they do Acro, and they signed her. And what she is really a one event level 9, sweet kid, hard worker, gonna fulfill everything this school needs for Acro and then some.
Mhm.
And she's gonna get the collegiate experience
I love that.
in part because she has organizations that are helping her find stuff,
Yeah.
which is what full out recruiting does for people.
Mhm.
Tell me, and our audience, what are some quick like misconceptions or mistakes that parents and athletes make during the recruiting process?
Yeah, I think there are 3 big ones that stand out to me. One, most people start too late.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of recruiting happens your freshman and sophomore year. And so it's important to get started, early, but it's not necessarily early once you're in high school.
So the rules recently changed, but when my daughter was going through the process, it was 8th grade.
Mhm.
She was taking visits at big time programs in the 8th grade. And while it was super flattering and fun to go, it was mind boggling to me because I'm going, the kid's 13 and you want her to make a decision on like which school. Because, they used to call it a soft commitment. It's not official, it's not
Mm.
whatever. Or they'd give soft offers like, hey, we have a scholarship for you. It's nothing official and
Mhm.
whatever. And you have these schools asking for this stuff of somebody. She's 13,
Right.
man. Like,
Yeah. And we do have some clients that start with us freshman year. Um, and we work with them for, a couple of years until they hit junior, senior year, and their priorities end up changing, which I think is the beauty of recruiting and the beauty of maturing through those years. So I love that the rules changed
yeah.
to be a little bit later because there is so much growth in those years.
So when
So
should someone start? You said freshman
yeah, we
years.
typically say once you're starting high schools, which is a little bit crazy to some parents, but once you start high school, you should start thinking
Yeah, it
about
could be.
college.
It's crazy. You think it's crazy, parent, but you know what's crazier? You wait until their junior or whatever year, and all the scholarships are gone.
Yeah, or just spots on a team
Yeah,
are gone. Like you
yeah.
don't want to
Okay,
miss
that's a
your
better point
opportunity.
because we are trying to say there's more to
There's
it.
yeah. That's one big mistake. Another big mistake is being unrealistic.
Hmm.
Everybody dreams of going to the top school. But like we said, there's only 12 scholarship athletes on those teams. And then on top of that, there's maybe 1 or 2 walk-ons per
Yeah.
year. So there's a maximum of, let's say, 20 athletes on each one of those big name teams. So, you have to really be realistic with the choices that you are making and the places that you're reaching out to for what is gonna, meet your needs academically, athletically, and socially. And, you don't want to miss opportunities because you're chasing a dream that is
Yep.
just
We
out
talked
of
about that at
reach.
brunch too. Like, I have seen athletes who they and their parents were well intentioned but misguided. Back in the glory days of Alabama gymnastics, and they're on their way back up. But just going, hey, my family, we're all Alabama fans, and my kid's going to go to Alabama, and I look and go, that's maybe we should talk to Ball State, right? And
Who
then
also is on the up and up. But
yeah, well,
yeah,
and we keep saying like go to Centenary Division 3. It's going to be awesome. I have an athlete that went there and had such a great time. She continues to live in Louisiana and now works for the university, not coaching gymnastics, but does admissions or something like that because her experience there was so great. Go do collegiate athletics, please.
yeah.
But anyway, these guys will fold up shop when they realize, oh, I'm not going to be able to go to Alabama. Well, forget it. Let me do the next sport. And
It's a waste. It's a shame.
yeah.
So
All
yeah.
right, sorry. And so unrealistic, and what's the third one?
The third one is thinking you can do it yourself.
Yeah. Oh my
I
gosh, everything's easier with help.
so much easier with help. It is a long and daunting process to get recruited. Yes, there are those studs out there that, the phone is ringing and everybody wants them. But even those athletes need help or need somebody to talk to figure out what are their priorities. These are children trying to make these huge life decisions. And so having somebody in their corner to walk them through the process
Yep.
is
And it's not
valuable for
in the
sure.
process because it's a big competition, right? Like each athlete is competing against the other athletes for a spot on a team. When done efficiently and well, gives you advantages. Like somebody might be a better athlete and a better fit at a school that you get a spot on because they took advantage of service, like full
Yeah,
out
they were
collegiate
able
recruiting
to, communicate effectively, get themselves in front of coaches,
in a
make the
timely fashion.
make the right choices of who they're going to reach out to, all of that stuff. It's
Yeah.
important.
So without giving away the farm, do you have any like key tasks that maybe parents, coaches, or athletes should be doing in order to get recruited?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to do your research, right? Figure out what is important to you first. What are your goals? And then do your research to see, are your goals matching up with what's out there, right?
Hmm.
And not just the gymnastics, because everybody is going to focus on, okay, can I do the gymnastic skills? But there's the other parts that are important too. Is the academics what you want?
Can
Does
I be
this
an athletic trainer and
right?
compete? Yeah, and
Exactly.
that's real. Like,
Am I going to be okay having to take 2 flights with a layover that's always going to be in Chicago, that's going to be delayed every single time to,
that
go
sounds
back
uniquely personal.
to go back and forth home? Or would I rather be somewhere where I can get in my car and drive 4 hours and
Hmm.
be home every weekend? Those types of things you really have to ask yourself to at least start the process. And then from there, it's really just learning how to effectively communicate and get yourself out there, whether that's social media, email, phone calls, getting on campus, all of that stuff.
And I think I'll add to this. You're the expert, but I know this to be true because you've worked with our athletes. Is when you say learning to effectively communicate, it's more than just um, sending the stuff out. It's making sure that the stuff is right and relevant.
Mhm.
Suffice it to say is I think full out collegiate recruiting is one of the best additions to the gymnastics world. I'm so grateful that we have this friendship and really I love watching your business grow. I know one thing that was really helpful for ETC gymnastics is a few years ago, you actually came to the gym and did a presentation to all of our team parents, whether it was little guys or old guys or whatever. Is this something you still do for gyms? Do you still go in there and talk to them about getting ready for college and stuff?
Absolutely.
So what do they need to do if a coach wants to get in touch with you and have you come into their gym?
Yeah. You can just email us, reach out to me personally. It's just my first name, Hootie at fulloutrecruit.com. You can find us on social media at fulloutrecruit. Send us a DM. And then there will be the phone number on the notes, I think you're going to provide too, and all of this
I'll
information.
put a link
So,
to your website
oh,
in
yeah.
our description.
Perfect. Yeah. So reach out. I mean, it's a quick session. It's usually me and my business partner, Wendy. She does a session with the parents to kind of talk through the ins and outs from the parents' perspective. What's relevant for them? What do they need to know to support their kids through this process? And then I talk to the athletes about, my one on, firsthand experience of college recruiting, how I've helped individuals, what that process looks like. And then I make it fun. We play a little Jeopardy game to keep it engaging. And it's a really good time. It's a lot of really great education. I'd love to come out to your gyms.
Awesome. All right, let's close it out with some fun. I'm going to give you the same time machine questions that I give all of my guests.
Okay.
First, if you could go back in time and undo any one decision you've ever made, what would it be?
That's a tough one. And I really had to think about this one. Completely unrelated to anything that we have talked
Yeah.
about. I think the thing that I would undo is staying in a relationship longer than I should have. I was in a pretty toxic relationship for years, and it was incredibly hard to leave. And looking back, I wish I would have left sooner.
We could
But
do a whole episode on that, really. I mean, good advice. Everybody that's out there listening, don't buy into the fallacy of sunk cost, especially when it comes to toxic relationships.
yeah,
All right, all right. Again, this could be a whole episode.
totally.
Um, Glad you made that decision and did better for yourself.
Thank
All
you.
right, so the second time machine question is if you could go back in time and offer just one piece of advice to young Huri, what would that be?
I think that would be to more like live in the moment of whatever is happening, right? Like I am the type of person that it is here's my task, I'm going to accomplish it. What's my next task? I
Hmm.
I am achieve 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 and sometimes I forget to, just experience the love of what's happening. I think the Olympics was
I
a
was just
really
going to say, I think at least there
that
you
was
followed your own advice.
That was a key moment where myself, I said, "I'm here. I'm gonna do everything I can to just soak it all in." And I wish in other things in my life I would have had that same maturity.
Obviously, like you, I'm a big believer in planning, looking ahead, whatever and whatever. So I'm not saying don't do that because in fact, I'm saying do that. It's good for you. But I want to say the best version of you I have ever seen is in those Olympics when you were there
Just
absorbing the
enjoying
moment.
the moment.
Aren't you glad that
Mhm,
for whatever reason in those moments you took it
mhm.
all in? Yeah, good for you. I'm happy for you. All right. I also always like to ask my guests for a book recommendation. Do you have one for us?
Yeah, I have 2,
Okay, two. I
actually.
brought two also. I keep doing that. Go ahead.
They're good books. The first one is actually one that I recommend for our clients that finish with us and their parents to read. It is called What Made Maddie Run. And it's actually about a young lady who was a star athlete. She ran track and she earned a spot on an Ivy League team, and she went through the struggles of transitioning from high school to college, which nobody really realizes how hard it actually is until you're in it. Like, I had a really hard time with it, and
Hmm.
luckily for me, I made it to the other side safely. For this young woman, she ended up committing suicide her
Hmm.
second semester of college just because it was so hard for her to make that transition. I think it's so important for people to learn from this young lady's experience that not everybody, but a lot of people have these struggles and it is real. Mental health is
Hmm.
important to address and depression, anxiety, it's hard to deal with, but something that we have to talk about. And I think it's important for athletes going into the college realm to know there are high expectations for you.
Yes.
And,
Yep.
you know, if you can't handle it, it's okay, but get some help.
Hmm.
And, it's a very interesting book.
What made Maddie run? Right.
What Made Randy Run? And,
Hmm.
and I think it's really valuable to read. Um, and then
That's the second one. Yeah.
my second book is Can't Hurt Me. It is an autobiography by David Goggins. He is a Navy SEAL and an ultra marathon runner.
I
And
already hate him.
he's honestly phenomenal. And I knew like nothing about the Navy SEALs. I actually went to PA school with a Navy SEAL in my class, and he was the most normal person I've ever met. But I've read a couple of books now, and following this book by David Goggins, it just shows the grittiness it takes to be a SEAL, the grittiness to overcome every obstacle that is put in front of you. Like, I don't want to say, I'm the grittiest human in the world, but like, I feel like I have some grittiness in me, and I felt like I could relate to this man. Of course, he's accomplished, far more than I have, but it's just so inspiring to know that no matter what obstacles were ahead of him, he was going to make it work. He was going to run, an ultra marathon on broken legs. He was going to make it through Navy SEAL training after, 3 attempts. Like it's just all sorts of really great motivational stuff. I'd highly recommend it.
Wow, awesome. Okay, I've got 2 books I want to recommend, both by the same author. Shel Silverstein, one of my all-time favorites. First, I want to recommend The Giving Tree, and then second, Where the Sidewalk Ends. Both of these books, first of all, in The Giving Tree, there is so much wonderful symbolism, and then so much creativity in Where the Sidewalk Ends. These were both books that when I was a kid, I wore them out. Like the pages
Yeah.
were wore out, the cover was wore out. And I say kid, I was in high school and still would reread Where the Sidewalk Ends over and over. And then bought brand new copies when I had children and wore them out reading them to my kids because they're great. So people read The Giving Tree, read Where the Sidewalk Ends, as an adult, as a child, to your child.
I should
It'll be
read them
great.
again as an adult. I definitely read them as a kid. So
Houry, it's been an absolute privilege to have you on the show today. Good luck to you and Full Out Collegiate Recruiting. I'll leave a link in the description of everything to your website. And
great.
you already talked about your email address. You should know that your story is literally it's my second all-time favorite Olympic gymnastics story that I literally can't wipe the grin off my face when I watch you grinning and kissing the equipment. Thank you for coming on. All my listeners and all my viewers, the way you spell her name is Houry, like Houry, but you pronounce it Houry. And her last name, Gebeshian, Gebeshian. And you can plug that in when you're trying to email her that way. Or you can look her up on YouTube and see some of these videos. Don't look for worlds. Look for Rio.
I think you got to dig a little.
Yeah, I
it.
did have to find that. Thank you to my producer Tom, for accommodating us today with the great video support. And as usual, people, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, or email me at kenharrisironbusiness@gmail.com. Until the next episode of Stick the Landing podcast, brought to you by Iron Business Solutions. I'm Ken Harris with Iron Business Solutions, and we'll have stories to tell and solutions to deliver for you and your gymnastics business. If you want more information about the many ways Iron Business can help you reach your vision for your gym, visit us on the web or social media. Links in the description. And if you enjoy this podcast, please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media. See you next month. Hey, if you enjoy this podcast, please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media and leave us a review.